friends, Amanda here. Welcome back to Handmade Not Hallmark. Today I've got a fun faux dip dye technique to share with you. I've done this technique in the past. I was inspired by Christina Warner a few years ago and I love the idea. It's super easy, super fun. Let's get into it. So I'm going to start with my painting. Now this process is a little tedious, a little bit time consuming just because you have to go through and dry each layer in between your painting, but in the end it makes for such a beautiful idea and style of card, and I love the way that it looks. You can do this with any color that you like. I just chose green because, as you guys know, green has been kind of my go-to color this season and I just love it so much and I think it looks really elegant. So this is a faux dip dye. So what that means is dip dyeing is where you take fabric or paper or anything like that and you dip it into ink or color or paint, but you do it in gradual stages. So you start with really light and you work your way up until it gets super dark and you get like these lines and layerings of each of those colors. So here I just tore the bottom edge of my paper just to make it look a little bit more organic and look like a sheet of parchment paper. I'm starting out with a really thin coat of this green color. This is my Gansai Tambi watercolor set. I've used it in the past for this technique and I think it's a really good color palette to do and really good paints to do this technique. So all I'm doing is I'm gradually adding more pigment to water, and what that's going to do is it's going to gradually show these different layers of color as I go down the cardstock. I start out with only doing the top section and then I end up painting the whole sheet as I move further on down. So again, I'm just adding darker or more ink or more paint, to the water that I'm using as I move down the sheet, and I'm drying each layer in between. This is where the process can take a little bit of time, but again, in the end, I think it's totally worth it. So I'm going to put on some music for you guys to enjoy while I continue with the painting, and when we're all done, we'll come back and finish up the card together.
No. A cold winter night when lights are low, the treetops are covered up in snow, and I always miss you so. I know that it's Christmas time again. The reindeer are rushing side by side, and Santa is going for a ride, but it's you I'm longing for. I feel that it's Christmas time again. Missing all these little things that we used to do. Everything was so much better back then, when we wished upon a star and our dreams came true. How I wish you were here when it's Christmas time again. It's Christmas time. The silence on every empty street, when families are gathering to eat, then I always miss you so. I know that it's Christmas time again. Alone here, right by the fireplace, I dream of that smile upon your face. Only you I'm longing for. I feel that it's Christmas time again. I'm missing all these little things that we used to do. Everything was so much better back then, when we wished upon a star and our dreams came true. How I wish you were here when it's Christmas time again.
Once the painting was all finished and it was dried completely, I trimmed it down to fit onto a 5x7 card. I wanted this to have a really dramatic white border around it so it would really pop off of the background and really shine. I just trimmed it down. I'm not sure what the overall size was. I think it's like 3¼ by like 5 is roughly the size I used. I'm going to take a greeting from the Simon Says stamp Inside Christmas Greetings. This has been a favorite so far, and I love all the greetings in this. They're so fun. I love all the different fonts. So this one was just a really nice way to add a nice long greeting on top of this card without being too overdone, I think. So I'm just using my grid transparency to help me get this nice and lined up because those wiggly lines in the background make it kind of hard to line things up. So I'm going to heat emboss this using some antique gold embossing powder from Simon. I'm going to put some anti-static powder down first. And I made sure that this was completely dry before I did any embossing. I gave it quite a while. I think I left for a little bit to go do some stuff and then I came back to finish it up. So it was nice and dry by the time I was all finished. Gonna stamp that down, make sure I got a really good impression, and I didn't quite yet because this is some watercolor paper. This is some Canson XL watercolor paper and it does have a bit of texture to it, so I wanted to make sure that I had a really good impression. That's where the MISTI comes in hand, where you can, stamp things multiple times if you need to. I'm going to sprinkle this with that antique gold embossing powder. As you guys know, green and gold has been my go-to this season. I'm sure I'm probably boring you guys with this, but I'm not quite done with it. I've got one more card that features green, but it's more of a comparison video. It's coming up, I think, later this week. I just so happen to use green and gold because it looks so nice, but it's mostly a technique and kind of a comparison video between a couple of things. So I'm more focused on that than I am the color choices. Gonna hit that with my heat gun, get that embossing powder nice and melted. And I love the way that this greeting looks on this background. Super fun. You could paint a whole bunch of these panels, just kind of sit down in the afternoon or an evening and just do a whole bunch of painted panels and create a bunch of cards like this. This is such an easy technique. You can do a whole sheet and print it and then just trim it down later. Super easy way to get a really nice group of cards. I think this would be really pretty in a red as well, or even a nice blue. I think would be pretty with maybe some silver embossing powder. That would look really nice. Again, I'm back to my blues, but I think any color would be great. And you could switch up the greetings for, Mother's Day, any other kinds of occasions. I think it would be really fun. I'm going to stamp an additional greeting on the inside just because I love all of the greetings in here and I felt like I needed to add just a tiny bit more to it. I chose Wishing You a Wonderful Christmas. I'm going to line that up on the center of my card here, and I'm going to stamp it down using some MFT dye inks, and I'm going to use the jalapeno ink color. It's a really nice rich green. I think it looks really good with the green that's going on in the rest of the card. Gonna get that stamped down. I love these inks. They're so crisp and I love all the colors as well. Gonna get my stamp all cleaned off here and we're gonna get our painted piece added to the front of our card. I decided to go with a 5x7 just because I wanted to use as much of that painting as possible. I didn't want to have to trim it down too much. You could easily do this as a landscape as well. I just prefer portrait. I think it looks a little bit nicer. But again, I think this would look really nice either way. I'm going to cover the back of this painted piece with some foam tape just because there was a little bit of warping with all of the water that I added. So I wanted to make sure that it laid nice and flat. I love this extra wide foam adhesive that I found, but it doesn't work on thin areas, so it's kind of a pain to cut it, but I really do like it a lot. Gonna get that lined up here, and I love the dramatic white border around it. I think it looks really, really nice. Super fun idea. And then finally, I'm gonna go in with, you guys probably guessed it, my favorite gold flat sequins. This just really kind of finishes it off. I really think this is a nice, clean and simple card design. even though it does take a little bit of time to do that background. But if you paint a whole bunch of these backgrounds at one time and then create a bunch of cards, you could really knock out a whole bunch of these. Gonna get these adhered on here, and that will finish up this card for today. I really hope you enjoyed this fun faux dip dye watercolor technique using some great watercolors from Gansai Tambi. Again, if you like the video, please consider hitting the like button. It lets YouTube know that you're enjoying all of the content here on my YouTube channel. And if you hit the subscribe button and the little notification bell, you'll be notified every time I upload a video. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.
On screen, I've got a few videos that I think you'll enjoy. Consider hitting the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any more videos at my YouTube channel.